What's poppin', everybody? This is the cartoon kid, Ray Rollins, and today I am going to be talking about South Park, the pandemic special. Look, man, I know it's been a while since this been out, but I just gotta talk about it, man. I figured it's better to be late to the party than to never show up, you feel me? So, you guys know the routine, man. Before I start breaking this episode down, I'm gonna have to give y'all that episode breakdown. For this episode, man, I'm gonna try to keep it pretty short and simple with a summary. The entire episode really focuses around South Park as a whole, as a town really, and how they deal with the whole coronavirus pandemic. Now, this episode pretty much has two plots. The first plot, and I guess you could call it the main plot, deals with Randy Marsh and him trying to conceal the fact that he pretty much started the whole coronavirus pandemic. He is responsible for bringing the coronavirus not only to America, but making the virus transmittable through humans. Okay, and this is done by him basically having a wild night with our good homie Mickey Mouse. I don't care about Mickey Mouse, but I call him my good homie. But he's having a night out of town with Mickey Mouse, and basically Mickey pretty much convinces him to smash a bat, right? Mickey pretty much deems this to be normal because a bat pretty much, at least to him, is a mouse with wings. And, this all started in Wuhan, China. So Randy basically, he's all stoned out of his mind with Mickey Mouse. And he's like, hey, man, this might be a good idea. So Randy smashes the bat, right? And, they're basically chilling later on in Wuhan, China. And Mickey pretty much convinces him that, yo, you know what? Since you like that bat so much, you might want to smash a pangolin. So Randy, of course, being stoned out of his mind still, smashes a bat, or a pangolin rather, and that's how the coronavirus ends up getting transmitted to the first human, which obviously it being Randy. And then he comes back to South Park, brings that mess to America. And he doesn't want his wife to find out, so he's going to go through all these great lengths to try to hide his whole role in making coronavirus a thing between humans, okay? That's the first plot. The second plot has to deal with the kids, Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and I would say Kenny, but, we're going to get into that a little bit later. But it pretty much deals with them and how they're dealing with the pandemic. Cartman loves the fact that he doesn't have to go outside. He can do school online through Zoom and whatnot. And all the other kids, they're not liking it, man. They want to go to school. They want to be in class with all the other kids. They want to socialize. They want everything to be back the way that it was. Now, school ends up being put back in session, and the kids end up, going back to school, obviously, in person. They have social distancing rules and whatnot. They're putting these little tank thingies and all that good stuff. And another funny point about this is, hell, there's no teachers, man. The teachers of the classrooms are police officers who were defunded because, the whole George Floyd incident in Minnesota. On their first day back at school, Kyle and Cartman end up starting a big old fight. The two police officers in charge of the class end up start shooting at the kids like that's, that's gonna solve anything, right? But it's South Park. So Token ends up getting shot, right? And they're basically playing it off like Token had coronavirus. And I don't think the town pretty much figures out that Token got shot. Who knows, man? That never gets touched on in this episode. But because of this, the kids are pretty much stuck inside of the school undergoing a 2-week mandatory quarantine. So that's pretty much the second plot. Obviously, there's a lot more to summarize with the plot, but you know what? I'm not here to tell you what happened in the episode. I'm just here to give you guys my opinion, man. So the first thing that I want to mention, my first thoughts is South Park, for it being, what it is, a series that over dramatizes real world situations in a comedic fashion. A lot of people may have differing opinions on this. Me personally, I kind of like the episode. Okay, say what you will with the whole Randy Marsh situation with the bat. Hell, it's South Park, man. That's what they do. They over dramatize everything, and they do it in a comedic fashion or in a relatively stupid fashion, honestly. People may say what they will, this episode wasn't hitting, but I think it was okay. Was it the best episode in South Park history? No. I don't think so anyways. Me being a longtime fan of South Park, For me personally, it's been a while since I seen a new South Park episode. And I gotta say, that's one thing I've been doing during this pandemic, since everything's online and remote and whatnot. I've been watching a lot of South Park on Comedy Central, man. And I've been getting back in touch with the cartoon because as a kid, I used to love the hell out of some South Park. I ain't even gonna lie to you, man. I used to love South Park. That used to be a whole routine when I was younger. Me and my brother, every Wednesday night, I think it was, we used to sit in front of the TV waiting for the new episode of South Park to come on. Hell, I'll never forget when the movie came out. I had to be like maybe 7 years old. And my mom, she did not want me or my brother to be watching South Park. And whenever she went to work, my brother straight up went in her room, took that movie, and we straight up watched that shit on the low, man. So South Park's been a very big part of my childhood. And I have a strong love for this series. I just fell out of it as I grew up because, you know, just like every cartoon series, The Simpsons is the best example. After a certain season, it's just not hitting anymore. It's not what it used to be. But my original first thought after wrapping up this episode was that I truly believe that they handled the portrayal of our real world situation at the time with the pandemic. They handled it really well. Obviously, they broke it down into their own little style. You know, they over dramatized some shit. They did it in their little comedic fashion, as I said before. But I think they did it in an okay fashion. But with all that being said, let me get on to some of my favorite moments of the episode, man. The first thing that I want to talk about is the whole school situation, okay? Everybody knows that school has been pretty much remote for the past year of the pandemic, right? So, with the main protagonists of the series being kids, you knew this was going to be the main thing that they touched on. And I had to give them huge points for this because they did this perfectly. Cartman, of course, being the fat, lazy ass that he is, man, he don't want to go to school. He doesn't want to do any in-person learning. He is 1,000,000% content with this whole online learning situation, man. He hops on Zoom and he pretends that his computer's screwing up, and obviously the teacher can't do shit about it. So she's like, man, you're just gonna have to do the best that you can. And this dude straight up puts a whole picture of himself in front of the screen, making it look like he's on the Zoom call. I have to give the writers super respect points for that because they played that situation perfectly. They could have done it with any other kid, and you know, it's an obvious thing. Obviously, you're gonna have Cartman be like, yo man, fuck school, I'm loving this whole online situation, right? But what I really do give them points for is nearing the end of the episode where Randy is going to basically reveal that, yo, I'm the start of this whole coronavirus crap. Randy's holding the pangolin that he stole from the science lab, and they're standing outside of Build-A-Bear. But before Randy is getting ready to hand it over to the scientists, Cartman comes over, snatches that bitch, and is getting ready to kill it. We see Stan have a whole breakdown talking about, man, this coronavirus made things hell for pretty much all of the kids. Kids aren't being able to socialize, and he basically says, yo, I want things to go back to the way they were. And since this pangolin is the key for scientists to develop a vaccine, Cartman basically grows a heart, man. Cartman, being the good guy, man, he goes and hands the pangolin to the scientists without saying a word, man. And I will say this, as they did the little dramatic pause with Cartman getting ready to kill the pangolin and whatnot, any OG South Park fan who's been watching since season 1, they would have been like, man, Cartman's gonna kill that motherfucking thing. They're gonna do the whole dramatic pause, and Cartman's gonna say, nope, fuck that shit, and the penguin's dead. But no, man, the writers took the alternate path in that situation because they had a funnier joke in mind. They let Cartman give the pangolin to the scientist, being the good guy, showing a little bit of character development, if you ask me. But they have the president of the United States in their timeline, Mr. Garrison Trump, come up there and roast that motherfucker with a flamethrower, killing the pangolin and the scientist, man. That leads me to the second point of this episode that I want to point out. Since I haven't seen South Park in so long, I wasn't super aware of what role Donald Trump played in South Park itself, you know? I did know for a fact that they were going to do some type of, you know, portrayal of the presidency, the debates and whatnot. And I did see the episode where Mr. Garrison basically ran for election and became Garrison Trump. I thought it was absolutely hilarious when Stan was in a school and he tried to call President Garrison Trump up for a little bit of help. You see him sitting in the presidential office, and he has all his staffers coming in, telling him, yo, you got calls from so-and-so. Oh, wait, there's a call from Mr. Slave. And then, this is how you know it's Mr. Garrison, man. He's like, Mr. Slave? Oh, shit, patch him through. And it's basically Stan trying to get him to help fix the situation. And I gotta say, Garrison Trump was like, hell no, I'm not gonna help fix this situation. This pandemic is getting rid of a whole bunch of Mexicans, man. I'm fulfilling one of my election promises. This explains the whole ending of the episode where the penguin and the scientist end up getting killed. So I gotta say, that shit was fucking hilarious. Another thumbs up to the writers on that point. I just like the comedy of that joke. You had the whole setup earlier, like way earlier on in the episode, probably like the midway point, but then you add the little cherry on top with that ending. Bravo. And plus, you made Cartman look like the good guy, okay? You did a little something different. So thumbs up for you guys on that part. Now let's talk about Randy Marsh and his whole little role in this episode, man. The first thing I do want to say is that one of these episodes or one of these seasons of South Park, if they haven't done it already, they probably did. Actually, no, they did. That was really earlier on in the series. Randy and his wife, I fucking forgot her name, man. I cannot remember her name to save my life. Sharon, I think it is. But they're going to eventually end up getting a divorce, and it's going to stick, because I will say this. In every episode I see her in, she's always got some dumb shit to say. You feel me? She's always got a goddamn attitude towards our favorite weed selling homie, all right? Like, she is 100% a bitch. You feel me? Randy, although he's always on some dumb shit, he gets a lot of motherfucking hate from his own wife, especially in this episode. I found it funny as hell how he was like, man, my wife can't find out that I started the pandemic because she's really gonna bitch about it. And listen, she will most definitely bitch about it. But I do have to take this opportunity to say, man, fuck Sharon Marsh, man. She ain't shit. I just have to really quickly mention the whole police defunding situation in South Park, Colorado, man. Everybody knows the whole situation George Floyd played on America, and especially during that time, a few months before this episode actually aired, everybody was looting, rioting, the whole situation with police brutality against African Americans. After the police were defunded in South Park, they were working at the school as teachers. And of course, as I mentioned in the summary part of the video, Kyle and Cartman end up getting into a fight. Police decide that, yo, you know what can solve this situation is some gunfire. And funny how Token ends up being the only kid end up getting shot. So listen, man, I thought it was a funny, fucked up joke at the time, and I still do. I don't think there's any harm in it, but it's just like, man, South Park, only you guys can get away with making this joke, man. But let me get on to my review portion of the video, because I can go on all day with all these moments. Overall, I feel that this was an interesting episode. And I didn't talk about the whole Randy Marsh plot as much as I wanted to in this episode review. But I will say, it's a weird plot line. It's a weird plot. I could sit here and say that they chose the 100% perfect character to put in that position. And they did, honestly. Randy, he's a traveling man, he's got his own weed selling business. So who's going to be put in that situation in China where they're going to be fucking bats? Randy, of course. You could think Kyle's dad may have been good for the position because, he's a lawyer. He probably got a client out there. But no, Randy is the guinea pig for all the dumb shit. He's the character that they can put in all the comedic plot lines and make all the jokes out of. Kind of just like Cartman. But for this being the weird plot line that it was an interesting one, and it kind of made sense for the most part, besides the whole bat fucking part. I don't know about that, but they did an okay job with that one. My only criticism with the kids plot line in the school and whatnot is, where the fuck is Kenny, man? I mean, I seen him, he was in the background, you seen him going to go get food and whatnot, and you see him a little bit in the background, but Kenny really got no camera time. And since it was a long time since I saw South Park, I was like, yo, did Kenny die again? Are they doing a whole thing where they're pretty much writing Kenny off? No, Kenny was there. He just didn't get any camera time, which kind of really threw the whole dynamic off. I mean, not by much, but when you see the three boys, Cartman, Stan, and Kyle, You're used to seeing that little kid in the motherfucking red parka. Like, oh shit, there's Kenny. Kenny right there with him. He's part of the crew. But Kenny was rarely had any camera time, man, which felt a little different. I mentioned earlier that they did the whole schooling plot well. They had the one kid who didn't want to go back to school, that being Cartman, and they that choice was perfect to me. And I do have to give them, like I said, bonus points for how they handled the ending episode, with Cartman coming off looking like the good guy and Garrison Trump coming to kill the scientist and the rat to basically save his approval ratings. Overall, both plot lines are okay. If you ask me to rate these plot lines on a 5-star scale, I'd honestly give them both 3 stars. I can't say that one was better than the other, but I will say this. Despite people's feelings on the episode, because I heard people weren't too fond of this episode, I'm gonna have to take the road less traveled here and say that although it wasn't the best episode, it was okay. Simply put, man. Could it have been better? Perhaps. But you know what? I will sit here and say this. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. The only thing I wasn't a big fan of was Randy Marsh basically fucking bats and shit. But that can even be exempt because, like I said, it's South Park. They're always doing dumb, weird-ass shit in an over-dramatic fashion. So I will say both plot lines are okay. They could have been worse. They could have been better. And overall, I'm going to have to hit this episode with, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. I wouldn't say it's a 7, but I'll give it a 6.5. It definitely could have been a hell of a lot worse. But for the show being South Park and, you know, them having the writers that they have, they did a pretty damn decent job, in my opinion. But this has been my review of South Park, the Pandemic Special, man. This is the Cartoon Kid, Ray Rollins. Tell me what you think of this episode. Tell me if you liked it. Tell me if you hate it. Tell me what you would rate it. Drop all your opinions down in the comments box below. And until next time, I will see y'all when I see y'all. Peace out, everybody.